There's a special kind of heartbreak that comes when your own children begin to treat you with disrespect. It's not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it's in the tone of their voice, the way they ignore your calls, or the dismissive look they give when you try to offer advice. If you're a parent and you've ever felt invisible, belittled, or even disrespected by the very ones you raised, you're not alone. I know this pain because I've lived it. There was a time I would sit alone, replaying moments where I felt hurt by my children's words or actions. I questioned myself endlessly. Did I fail them somehow? Did I do too much? Or not enough? But here's what I learned. Regaining respect starts with reclaiming your role, not through anger or guilt, but through powerful, intentional actions that command dignity without demanding it. This video isn't about blaming your children or shaming yourself. It's about understanding why respect sometimes fades, especially as kids grow into adults, and most importantly, what you can do to rebuild it. Because the truth is, you still matter. Your voice still matters. And no matter how far the connection may seem right now, there is still hope to mend and strengthen the bond. So in this video, we'll talk about 6 powerful ways to earn back the respect of your children. Not through fear, but through wisdom, confidence, and love. These are lessons I've gathered from personal experience and from countless conversations with parents who've walked the same road. And if this resonates with you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more real-life advice that supports you as a parent, a person, and someone who still deserves respect. 1. Set clear boundaries. One of the most surprising things I learned on this journey was that love alone isn't enough to earn respect. In fact, too much leniency, given with the best intentions, can actually invite disrespect. I used to think that being the understanding parent meant always saying yes, always being available, and never pushing back too hard. But over time, I noticed that my children began to treat my kindness like weakness. That's when I realized respect begins with boundaries. Setting boundaries doesn't mean being harsh or cutting people off. It means knowing your worth and standing firm on what you will and won't tolerate. For example, if your child speaks to you in a demeaning tone, it's okay to calmly but firmly say, "I don't accept being spoken to that way. When you're ready to speak respectfully, I'll be here to listen." That one simple boundary can shift the dynamic in powerful ways. When I first started drawing lines, it wasn't easy. My children were surprised and, honestly, a little resistant. But over time, I noticed a change. They paused before speaking harshly. They began to ask instead of demand. They didn't always like the new rules, but they began to see me as someone who valued myself. And when you show that you respect yourself, it sends a message. You need to respect me too. Clear boundaries create emotional safety for you and your children. It teaches them that relationships are not one-sided, and that mutual respect is not optional. You're not trying to control them. You're showing them how to relate to you in a healthy, respectful way. Start with small, firm, and consistent boundaries. Stick to them. Over time, those boundaries will become the foundation of a more respectful, honest relationship. 2. Stop chasing their approval. This was one of the hardest lessons for me to learn, but also one of the most freeing. You don't need your children's constant approval to be a good parent, or to be respected. For years, I found myself bending over backwards, trying to stay in their good graces. I gave too much, stayed silent when I should have spoken up, and accepted behavior that hurt me, all because I didn't want to push them away. I thought if I just stayed patient or agreeable or helpful enough, they'd see how much I loved them and treat me better. But it doesn't work like that. Chasing approval puts you in a powerless position. It tells your children, whether they mean to hear it or not, that their opinion of you matters more than your own self-respect. And once they sense that, it becomes easy to take you for granted. You might hear things like, "You're being too sensitive," or "That's just how I am. Get over it." These are signs that the power dynamic has shifted in an unhealthy way. When I finally stopped chasing approval and started standing in my own truth, everything changed. I stopped tiptoeing around their moods. I said no without guilt. I stopped trying to prove myself, and instead, I focused on showing up as a parent who was strong, loving, and whole, with or without their validation. That quiet strength did more to regain their respect than years of people-pleasing ever could. Letting go of the need for approval doesn't mean cutting off love or communication. It means you no longer make your sense of worth dependent on how they treat you. You lead with self-respect, and from that place, you can rebuild the relationship on healthier terms. So if you've been shrinking yourself to win their love or tiptoeing around their disapproval, stop. You're not here to be liked all the time. You're here to be respected, valued, and loved for who you truly are. 3. Speak with calm authority. I used to think that raising my voice or getting emotional was the only way to get through to my kids when they disrespected me. I would yell out of frustration or speak with hurt in my voice, hoping they'd finally understand how much their words or actions pained me. But here's the truth. Power doesn't come from volume. It comes from calm, steady authority. There was a moment I'll never forget. My son spoke to me sharply during a phone call. Normally, I would have either gotten upset or tried to smooth things over just to keep the peace. But this time, I paused. I took a breath. And then I said, in the calmest, clearest voice I could, "I'm not okay with the way you're speaking to me. I'm happy to continue this conversation when we can talk with mutual respect." Then I hung up. I wasn't angry. I wasn't emotional. I was firm. That moment shifted everything. The next time we spoke, he was more thoughtful, more careful with his words, and, surprisingly, more open. You see, when you react emotionally, it's easy for your message to get lost in the chaos. But when you speak calmly, with intention, and from a place of strength, not fear, you make people stop and listen. You're no longer playing the role of the emotional parent or the pushover. You're becoming the anchor in the storm. Speaking with calm authority doesn't mean bottling up your feelings or being cold. It means taking control of how you express yourself. You say what needs to be said without yelling, without begging, and without letting your emotions hijack your message. This approach commands attention. It commands respect. So the next time your child disrespects you, resist the urge to explode or retreat. Instead, speak like someone who knows their worth. Use your voice not to overpower, but to empower the conversation. You'll be amazed at how powerful silence, calm, and clarity can be. 4. Don't compete with them. One thing I didn't realize early on was how easy it is for parent-child relationships, especially in adulthood, to quietly become a battlefield of comparison and subtle competition. Sometimes we do it without meaning to. We compare our struggles to theirs. We remind them how hard we worked or how much we sacrificed, hoping they'll understand and respect us more. But instead, what they hear is competition. And competition doesn't build respect. It builds distance. I remember one conversation where I tried to explain to my daughter how much I had gone through in life. I thought I was helping her see how resilient I was, maybe even inspiring her. But she pushed back, saying, "Why do you always make it about you?" That stung, but it also opened my eyes. I realized I wasn't speaking to be understood. I was speaking to be right. I was trying to win a silent argument about who had it harder, who did more, who deserved more appreciation. And in doing so, I was losing the emotional connection. Children, especially adult children, don't want to feel like they're in constant comparison with their parents. They want to be seen as individuals with their own paths, mistakes, and growth. And when we try to one-up them or constantly remind them of our efforts, it can make them defensive, or worse, resentful. The truth is, you've already proven your worth. You don't need to keep presenting your resume to your kids, hoping they'll finally see you. What they need is for you to listen more, empathize more, and support their journey, without trying to overshadow it with your own. By stepping out of competition and into compassion, you shift the dynamic. They begin to see you not as someone who's trying to win a lifelong argument, but as someone who's confident in their story and secure enough to let them have theirs. That's when real respect starts to grow. 5. Rebuild emotional connection. If there's one thing that truly changes the tone of a relationship between parent and child, it's emotional connection. Respect doesn't grow in silence or surface-level conversations. It grows in the deep moments of understanding, vulnerability, and love. For a long time, I focused so much on how my children were treating me that I forgot to look at how we were connecting. Or more honestly, how we weren't connecting at all. I remember one quiet afternoon when I finally sat down with my youngest son. No expectations, no lecture planned, just a cup of tea and a simple, "How are you really doing?" That moment became the beginning of a whole new chapter for us. Because for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel judged, corrected, or preached to. He felt heard. And in return, he started to listen to me too. Rebuilding respect with your children isn't about forcing change overnight. It's about showing up differently, consistently, and with courage. The truth is, you still hold immense influence, even if it doesn't always feel that way. By setting clear boundaries, letting go of the need for approval, speaking with calm authority, avoiding the trap of comparison, and nurturing emotional connection, you begin to shift the relationship, not through control, but through quiet strength. It takes time. It takes patience. But most of all, it takes you believing in your own worth again. Respect begins within. And as you lead with dignity, self-respect, and love, your children will start to see you differently, not just as a parent, but as a person they admire, trust, and honor. If this video spoke to you, please share it with someone who might need to hear these words. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and join the conversation in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. You're not alone on this journey. We're in it together.